There's a difference between a man who owns tools and a man who's actually a woodworker. Anyone can walk into a store and buy a table saw. Anyone can stack chisels on a wall like trophies and call it a workshop. But the tools were never the thing that made the craftsman. The choices did, quietly, project after project, long before anyone was watching. And by the time we get to the seventh thing on this list, you're going to know exactly which one you've been this whole time. Stay with me through all 7, because the last one isn't just another mistake sitting next to the others. It's the one that quietly separates a man who builds furniture from a man who builds something that outlives him, something his grandkids will still be arguing over who gets to keep. Most woodworking channels won't even mention it, mostly because it's uncomfortable to hear, and honestly, a little uncomfortable to admit about yourself. But if you've been doing this for a while, you already suspect which habit is yours. You've probably been telling yourself it's fine for years. Let's find out together whether it actually is. We're going to say it anyway. Number 1. A master woodworker never uses the wrong glue for the wrong joint. This sounds almost too basic to matter, until you realize how many good projects have quietly failed right here, years after the sawdust settled. Wood glue is not one product, it's a whole family, and every member of that family behaves differently under stress, moisture, and time. PVA glue is strong for general joinery, but it creeps under long-term load, which means a chair joint glued the lazy way might feel rock solid the day you build it and start wobbling like a bad joke 2 years later. Epoxy handles gaps and outdoor exposure far better, but plenty of men reach for whatever bottle happens to be closest instead of whatever the joint actually needs. A master doesn't grab glue out of habit or convenience. He matches the adhesive to the wood, the joint, and the environment the piece will actually live in for the next 20 years. Skip that thinking, and you're not building furniture, you're building a slow-motion failure with sawdust on it, and it will pick the most embarrassing possible moment to let go, usually with someone's grandmother sitting on it during a holiday dinner. Ask around any workshop long enough and you'll hear some version of that exact story, told with a nervous laugh, because the man telling it knows he grabbed the wrong bottle and got away with pretending it was bad luck instead of a bad decision. Number 2. A master woodworker never rushes the finish. This is where impatience quietly destroys hours of otherwise good work, and it happens more than anyone likes to admit. Sanding isn't a box to check on the way to the fun part, it's the difference between a piece that looks handmade with pride and one that looks handmade by accident. Skipping grits, jumping from 80 straight to 220 because the last hour of the project feels like a chore, leaving swirl marks buried under the final coat, these are the fingerprints of a rushed job, and they don't hide, they show up the second real light hits the surface. A real craftsman treats the finish like the final exam, not the afterthought squeezed in before dinner. He knows the piece was never really finished in the shop, it's finished the moment the light hits it right, in someone's living room, years later. Rush that step, and every flaw you told yourself didn't matter is going to sit there under a lamp for the next decade, quietly telling on you every single day. Run your palm across a rushed finish, and you can feel it before you even see it. A slight drag, a rough patch hiding under the sheen, like the wood is whispering that somebody had somewhere else to be. Number 3. A master woodworker never ignores grain direction. It sounds like a small detail, almost too small to earn its own point, and that's exactly why so many men skip right past it without a second thought. But grain direction determines strength, determines how a cut behaves under the blade, and determines whether a joint holds under real pressure or splits apart the first time someone leans back too far in that chair. Cut against the grain carelessly and you get tear out, weak points, and a piece that looks perfectly fine in the shop lights and falls apart the moment life actually happens to it. A master reads the wood before the wood ever touches the blade, almost like he's asking it permission first. He treats grain like a set of instructions the tree already wrote for him, long before he ever picked up a saw. Ignore those instructions, And you're not outsmarting the wood, you're just finding out the hard way why they were written in the first place, usually with a crack running straight through the one piece you couldn't afford to ruin, the one you already cut the rest of the project to match. Now here's something worth pausing on for a second, because if you've made it this far, you already care more about doing this right than most people who click on woodworking videos and drift off by minute 3, phone in the other hand. So if any of this is hitting home so far, go ahead and hit subscribe right now, because the next ones get more specific, and honestly, a little more uncomfortable to hear. And number 7, when we get there, is the one most men never see coming, even the ones who've been at this for decades. Alright, let's keep going. Number 4. A master woodworker never buys tools for looks over function. This one stings a little, and honestly it's supposed to. There's a very specific kind of man out there who has a workshop that looks incredible in photos and produces almost nothing worth photographing. Beautiful hand planes that have never actually touched wood, still shiny from the box. A wall of chisels arranged by color instead of by size, like it's a museum exhibit instead of a place where work happens. A master doesn't collect tools like trophies. He uses them until they're worn smooth in exactly the places his hands need them worn, and that wear is the only decoration he actually cares about. If a tool doesn't earn its spot on the bench through real, repeated work, it's not a tool anymore, it's decoration, and decoration has never built anything that lasted a single winter. You can always tell the difference between a workshop built for social media and one built for actual furniture. And it's not the price tags on the wall, it's the sawdust on the floor. Number 5. A master woodworker never skips the dry fit. This is the step that quietly separates patience from ego, and it's easy to talk yourself out of. A dry fit means assembling the entire piece without a drop of glue first, checking every joint, every gap, every angle, while there's still time to fix it. Skipping it feels like saving 15 minutes. Right up until the glue is already setting and you realize one joint doesn't sit flush the way it should. Now you're not fixing a mistake anymore, you're living with it forever, because wood glue doesn't offer second chances the way patience does. A real craftsman would rather spend 20 extra minutes double-checking than 20 extra years staring at a gap he could have caught before it was permanent. It's not glamorous work, nobody films the dry fit for the highlight reel. But it's the quiet step that decides whether the highlight reel even happens. Number 6. A master woodworker never ignores wood movement. Wood is not dead material sitting quietly on your bench once it's cut, it's still reacting to humidity and temperature long after the tree is gone and the sawdust is swept up. It expands, it contracts, it shifts with every changing season, and if you build a tabletop without accounting for that movement, you're not building furniture, you're building a crack that's simply waiting for next winter to show up and finish the job. This is the mistake that doesn't announce itself right away, which is exactly why so many people never learn the lesson until it's too late to fix cheaply. It shows up 6 months later, when the piece splits down the middle and the man staring at it has no idea why, because nobody ever told him wood keeps on living long after it's been cut and joined. A master doesn't fight that movement, he plans around it, leaving room for the wood to breathe instead of pinning it down and hoping it behaves. Now, before we get to the last one, understand this clearly. Everything up to this point costs you a project. The last one costs you something a lot bigger than that. Number 7. A master woodworker never treats sharpening as optional. Here's why this single habit matters more than every other point on this list combined, and why we saved it for last. A dull tool doesn't just cut worse, it actively lies to you while it's doing it. It tells you the wood is harder than it really is, that your technique is worse than it actually is, that you're less capable than you truly are. Men blame their skill, blame the wood, blame a bad set of plans, when the real problem was sitting quietly in their own hand the entire time, dull, unnoticed, making every single cut harder than it ever needed to be. A true craftsman sharpens before he needs to, not after he's already noticed the problem and blamed everything except the blade, because he knows a sharp tool doesn't just cut cleaner, it tells the truth about his hands. This is the real dividing line, more than talent, more than the tools themselves, even more than raw years of experience. The men who build things that actually last are the ones who never let ego convince them a dull edge is good enough for today's project. Everything else on this list is a mistake you can recover from with time and patience. This one quietly decides whether everything you build for the rest of your life is even worth building at all. Think about every project on this list we just walked through. The wrong glue, the rushed finish, the ignored grain, all of it gets worse, faster, in the hands of a dull tool, because a dull blade doesn't just fail to cut cleanly, it forces you to push harder, which forces you to lose control, which is exactly how grain tears and joints slip and hours of careful work end up in the scrap pile. Sharpening isn't the seventh mistake sitting quietly at the bottom of the list. It's the one sitting underneath all the others, the whole time. So here's the real question you should be sitting with right now. How many of these 7 have you actually been guilty of, if you're being honest with yourself instead of your workshop mirror, and are you actually willing to change them, or just nod along and keep doing exactly what you've always done? If any part of this hit different today, you already know what to do. Subscribe, stick around, and let's keep building the right way, one honest, sharp, well-fitted cut at a time. Because the truth is, none of these 7 things are complicated. Any man can learn them in an afternoon. The hard part was never the knowledge. The hard part is deciding you actually care enough to stop making excuses for the ones you've been guilty of the whole time.